Hey everybody, hey. So we're reading John Meacham's The Art of Power. It's basically a really in-depth biography of Thomas Jefferson, a founding father. And let's dig in. We're on page 103, okay? In drafting the Declaration of Independence, Jefferson was to be both poetic and prosaic. Prosaic. Creating sympathy for the larger cause while condemning Britain in compelling terms. Hey, this author is really. See how he did his language there? Creating sympathy, compelling terms, right? His purpose, he said, was not to find out new principles or new arguments never before thought of, but to place before mankind the common sense of the subject, in terms so plain and firm as to command their assent, and to justify ourselves in the independent stand we were compelled to take. As he sat to write the Declaration at Jacob Graff's house, he slept in one room and wrote in a private parlor across the stairs. Jefferson knew what had to be done, and he knew how to do it. He had thought much about the ends and means of independence. Alright, so essentially what I get from that is, if you have any type of movement you want to fulfill, look at the ends and look at the means, essentially. You can't just do it and then not have a plan, right? The document he wrote on a small wooden desk he designed flowed naturally from his character and his convictions. He later wrote, neither aiming at originality of principle or sentiment, nor yet copied from any particular and previous writing. It was intended to be an expression of American mind, and to give to that expression the proper tone and spirit called for by the occasion. The American mind, again, not the American race, the American mind, right? Expression to the proper tone, the tone of America, the spirit. The words of the Declaration came to Jefferson amid the hectic pace of legislative life, in a time of worry over war, distilling an Enlightenment vision about the sanctity and centrality of the individual. Sanctity of the individual and centrality of the individual. He argued that self-government was part of the nature of things. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature... Oh, hold on, let's take a pause for a second. When it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another. Big thing going on right now with the riots, essentially, right? Police brutality, right? Taxpayers funding the police force turning around then abusing the tax-paying populace. And people have had enough. And so it's necessary, right? The peaceful way is one way, hasn't worked. So people decided, you know what? Purification by flames. It's very interesting. And of nature's God entitled to them, a decent respect to the opinion of mankind, requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. So today with those riots, you'd say Black Lives Matter, stop police brutality, end corruption, end racism, right? At least that's what the Black Lives Matter essentially has. There's other factions who have gotten into that group and made it their own, but they have declared that what they want is to end police brutality. We hold these truths to be self-evident. So again, with this very famous speech nugget from Jefferson, we can always apply that to today. So the truths are self-evident. With these riots, we can say it's self-evident that there's a problem with the militarization of the police force and not enough accountability or punishment. Right? The fact that they can kill you in raw daylight and not be arrested on murder charges, but rioters get arrested and tossed in, the jail cell within the same day, right? So people are wondering, this is a self-evident truth that police brutality is wrong, regardless, and this has to be fixed. that all men are created equal. Again, we can tell that if you're in one uniform does not make you better than someone in the projects. You're equal. They have a constitutional right. You cannot murder them that easy. 4 officers murdering an individual or beating them or doing crazy things like that is wrong. You're equal, right? You can't do that. The rights are for everyone. You don't get to override someone's rights because you have a badge, right? And again, you don't get to abuse the officer because he has the badge. That they are endowed by their creator with inalienable rights. Yes, you have the right to all those Bill of Rights, essentially, that they laid out. Remember, we've been reading it. Those are your rights. They don't get violated just because of the color of your skin. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So you have a right to life, right? So with Eric Gardner was selling cigarettes in front of the store. They're called Lucy's. You buy them for 50 cents a piece. It's illegal, but it's 50 cents a cigarette because I guess they, somebody don't want to buy a whole pack. They buy 50 cents, you sell a Lucy. In Philadelphia, this is very common. He was selling it, and the police officers tackled him. They choked him to death, and he died. And they violated his rights. He didn't get a court trial. He didn't get a citation. He was murdered, right? Liberty. So you have the liberty to walk and express yourself and be who you are as long as you're not doing these violent crimes. But if you're just doing something simple and officers surround you and kill you, this is a problem. And the pursuit of happiness. Again, if only. That one is definitely a hard one to have now. There's so many workers, they are not happy. And if they were happy, you wouldn't see half of the country looting and burning right now. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So the government derives their ability to even have their position from the people. And when the people rebel, and the government decides not to change, but instead just to use force to press them into submission, this is a problem. Because the people have said, we've had enough, we've been nice, we nicely protest, you don't listen. We tell you to change these laws, instead the politicians listen to the expensive big money donors. People say, we don't like this, we don't like these rules you're doing, we don't like it. And they don't listen, and then people just explode with rage because it's like the system of paper pushing and pencil writing, it's not working, right? It's not working. The Dakota Access Pipeline, they said that we don't want this pipeline. Didn't listen. In Mauna Kea, Hawaii, they protested the telescope going on that sacred mountain that they respect for the Hawaiian culture. They didn't listen. They're going to put it anyways. So it's again, time and time again, people say we don't like this. We do not consent to this. Stop it. And the people don't listen. And now, look what's happened. Colin Kaepernick, he kneeled. And he said, we don't like police brutality. We're not consenting to this form of police militarization and governance. There's better ways we can do it. Let's reform it. Didn't listen. And now, look, it's at the tipping point. So, again, the consent of the governed. And also during the virus methods, they gave more bailouts to the corporations than the people. And the people are not happy about that. They're like, you don't let us work. You're not giving us enough aid. I don't consent to this. You're making us, ruin ourselves economically. So this is very interesting because when they say these documents, they think some people only use it when it fits their narrative. Oh, well, it's only for Republicans to use when they need it. And then Democrats are like, we don't need it at all because we live in the now. And this is very sad. So whenever we read these things that they write, we have to think, okay, we need to apply these today and see in what context they work. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it. So look, the destructive. It is destructive to forcefully only police black communities more than white communities and to let the rich get off and the poor be overly abused and tossed in jail more often than the rich people who do high class crimes instead of petty crimes, right? They get off scot-free. Michael Cohen, he was let out of jail because of the coronavirus, but if you sold marijuana, you're going to be still in jail. And it's like, wait a minute, which was worse? Someone selling $25 worth of weed, or the dude who did some big lying to Congress and he was pretty bad dude, right? Which is worse? You see what I'm saying? So people are tired of it. It's crazy. It is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it. So abolish it, you know, it's interesting. You have the anarchists who are like, we need to toss out the whole system and you know, get rid of it. And to institute a new government, laying its foundation on such principles, and organize its powers in such a form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. So look, institute a new form of power that'll make it more safe for them. Is it safe to have, you know, officers who can murder you in broad daylight and not even get put in jail right away? Is that safe? It's not safe, right? Is it safe to have people who only want to cause chaos? No. There has to be a middle ground. So, again, Jefferson's an interesting cat. It's really interesting.